In this video, we're going to look at 10 different fights from the solo cash cup and rate them as either good or bad so you can learn what to do and what not to do in your fights, so let's go. Aviv starts off this fight with an AR tag before he grapples right onto his enemy. He then quickly identifies that his opponent doesn't have a floor over his head. He uses this opportunity to place a floor, increasing his piece control. He then drops down onto the left side of his opponent's wall, giving him a right shoulder peek while pressuring his opponent. His opponent then tries to escape the box out to the side, but Aviv reacts perfectly, getting a high wall on his opponent. This causes the opponent to shoot the wall, giving Aviv an opportunity to full box his enemy, where he can then take a tack aim duel around a right shoulder peek. This was a good fight as Aviv correctly applied pressure from safety before perfectly reading his opponent with a high wall. If Aviv's opponent didn't want to die here, he should have reboxed away from Aviv instead of to the side, because it would have allowed him to create more distance from Aviv. Continuing in NA, TK starts off this fight by pressuring his opponent from his tops before switching angles to the wall, where he tries and fails to jump into his opponent's box. He then switches angles again, but gets punished by just sitting on a cone directly in front of his opponent. This causes TK to box up to try and get heals off. His opponent then tries to run over him, but gets caught in a tree. This gives TK the opportunity to get a cone over his opponent and the wall on his side. He then edits the wall and hits a huge shot to win the fight. Despite winning this fight, this was a bad fight from TK, as his pressuring on his opponent didn't use any peeks and it punished him. TK was only able to win this fight by capitalizing on his opponent getting stuck in a tree, which is not something we want to rely on when taking fights. Moving over to EU, Neb starts off this fight by dropping to the left of his opponent, giving himself a great right shoulder peek, which he gets a good shot from. He then chases his opponent, who now has his back towards Nebs, giving him another great shot. Nebs then sprays out his opponent's stare from a right shoulder window peek, but his opponent makes a good play of ramping Nebs off. This causes him to back up slightly, where he replaces his opponent's stare with his cone, which he then peeks right around. This is a good fight because Nebs took great right shoulder peeks and never gave his opponent a good chance to shoot him back. Now looking at a quicker fight, Bolt starts this fight off by getting a double edit onto his opponent before editing it and going for a trade shot. This results in both players being hit for around 90. Then Bolt does the same thing again, but this time he edits the floor and then resets it to bait a shot out of his opponent. His opponent takes the shot, giving Bolts a free opportunity to kill his opponent. This is a good fight because Bolts did a good job of baiting his opponent to shoot, which gave him an easy opportunity for the kill. But what about when you fight a pro? Well, Zadok is on the defensive after getting pumped by Tooth. Zadok boxes up to pop his healing items, but does not place a cone inside of his box. This allows Tooth to take the wall and slide a cone in the box at the same time. Zadok then makes space again and tries to go for a good counter shot, but because he doesn't have a cone in his box, it allows Tooth to place a ramp over him. From here, Zadok is stuck under the ramp and dies. This is a bad fight because Zadok never established centerpiece control when on the defensive, which allowed a player like Tooth to capitalize on this mistake. Continuing with players fighting pros, Wrestling Guy 08 is running through Paradise Palms when Vert gets a surprise shot onto him and he is forced to play on the defensive. He boxes up in a 1x1 and Vert makes a great play to place cones and floors on all sides of Wrestling Guy. This traps him in a 1x1, which allows Vert to pressure him from safe right shoulder peeks, which he eventually gets the floor and gets the kill. This was a bad fight from Wrestling Guy because he should have 2x1 when he got hit originally to give himself more space to work from. And even if he was forced into a 1x1, he should have looked to escape by going into the opposite direction, placing these two walls and a ramp over his head to get himself into new space. Moving on to our next fight, PeterBot is box fighting and he starts off this fight really well by playing around a right shoulder peek to take his opponent's wall. He then takes the wall and sees his opponent doesn't have a shotgun out, so he makes a wide edit and gets a good shot. PeterBot then increases his aggression and feels perfectly comfortable playing in his opponent's box because he sees his enemy with its blueprint out. This gives PeterBot an easy cue to jump in, which allows him to quickly clean up this fight. This was a good fight because PeterBot was constantly tracking what was in his opponent's hand and capitalizing on the opportunities when they had their blueprints out. Let's move back over to EU, where Felix starts off this fight with a big damage check. He then gets onto his opponent's wall and replaces it, forcing his opponent to go out to the side. Felix then makes a great reaction by looking right above the wall with his cone to stop his opponent from taking high ground. Felix then jumps onto his opponent's 2x1 and places the wall on the tile that he was missing. His opponent then escapes out to the side again, where Felix breaks his opponent's wall and places a cone over his opponent's head and a wall in front of his face. He then edits the wall and gets the kill. This was a good fight from Felix because he saw the places where his opponent failed to get piece control, and he did a great job of establishing his own builds in these places. Staying over in EU, Josh pushes a player and takes a 50-50, but this is okay because Josh has a push on. This gives him a huge HP advantage. His opponent then makes the correct play to make more space, and Josh starts to close the gap and tries to jump in the box with his HP advantage. He messes up though and runs right at his opponent's wall without setting up any peek. This allows him to get severely punished as he gets hit for a lot of damage from the opponent's good peek. Josh is able to spray through and clean up this fight, but this was a bad fight because Josh should have approached the wall from the left side to give himself a right shoulder peek, which he could then clean up his opponent from. Looking at our last fight, Ryze is hit hard by Nebs to start off the fight and makes the correct play to make a ton of space to try and get heals off. Nebs does a great job of pressuring him though, and Ryze is forced to make more space, but when he escapes his old box, he doesn't establish establish any counter piece control besides one side wall. As a result, when Neb starts to break out his ramp, he tries to go out a side where he doesn't have counter piece control and he dies. This is a bad fight because Ryze should have built more walls around him, giving himself more options to leave his box room. He also should have been more aware of the place where he did have counter piece control and made that his first reaction when trying to leave the box. This was Fortnite fights good versus bad too. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to also check out part 1 of this series on screen. Peace.